Action! Hello and welcome to episode 357 of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk
filmmaking.
From indie film to studio films to
high-end TV and everything in between.
How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to
royally F them up.
In a very, very humble opinion. I'm Giles Alderson.
I'm Dominic Watt.
We are both writer, directors and producers. And on today's show, we have the fantastic director and producer, Marc Jobst.
And what a good Jobst he did too.
He did. He was fantastic. It was a joy to chat to him, not only about his brand new TV series, One Piece, but also about his career. Going back to him, how he first started, how he got into making TV, all the way from making TV shows like EastEnders.
Through his crusade to bigger things.
Indeed. So what do we talk to him about on this week's episode, Dom?
We talked about the difference between directing UK and US TV shows and how those different structures and hierarchies work. We talked about fitting into the system and why you should watch other directors work.
We talked about being prepared to be fired, i.e. be prepared to walk away from a job, and how can you be free in the moment.
We also talked about having the conviction to fight for a long and challenging set piece when there was overwhelming pressure against him. Not being a Jobst worth, you could say.
Nice.
We also discussed why he uses the term being a parachute to explain building trust amongst the team.
He tells you about working with Netflix and Marvel, how he spoke to them and how he got the jobs, and how having a story vision is vitally important. So Marc Jobst, if you don't know, he's just had a brilliant career as a director. You know, his credits go way back. Let's list some of them, shall we, for you. EastEnders, The North Face, Casualty, Sorted, Inspector Lewis, Waterloo Road, Lark Rise to Candlefoot, Criminal Justice, Sleep With Me. That's a question. No. Okay. Waking the Dead, Case Histories, Upstairs Downstairs, The Paradise, Silk, The Musketeers, Hannibal, Hemlock Grove, Black Sails, Tin Star, The Punisher, Runaways, Luke Cage, Daredevil, Berlin Station, The Witcher, Jupiter's Legacy, and One Piece. So, it's on Netflix now. Do go watch and support. It's called One Piece. You've probably seen it advertised everywhere. It's a fantasy, adventure, comedy, drama television series developed by Matt Owens and Steve Maeda for Netflix. Adapted from the manga series of the same name, One Piece. Wow.
Okay.
Right?
Are you saying wow at my sound effects, I hope?
Yes, it was very good. It was very impressive, actually.
Yeah.
Have you been practicing?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. It's good because it's nice. I really just want to know that. See the improvement.
Yes.
The growth.
Yeah. It's all about improvement. Yeah.
I can't even connect that to what we're saying. And Mark said just like
Marc Jobst learned through the practice on all those jobs that we just listed off.
There's
always a connecting thread.
There always
how stupid
is.
the joke.
I want a segue. That's coming up for you on this week's episode of the Filmmakers Podcast.
In case you didn't know the title when you were clicking on the link, which is
some people might not have. They might have come here because of Mark, the amazing Mark, they just clicked on it and went, well, the Filmmakers Podcast, 250 odd episodes, all about filmmaking.
You dropped that statistic on someone in a podcast that we recorded today.
I did, but I will probably cut it out because I just wanted them to know.
I hope you do, because it was funny.
It was funny. That is the sad thing. But if you want to listen to us two idiots and learn from amazing guests
and many other idiots
talking about screenwriting, type in screenwriting on the filmmakerspodcast.com, or if you just want producing, type that in, or editing, type that in, VFX. It's all there for you on how you can go out there and make your films and TV shows.
Or just our names.
Or just search our names, because our names are on every episode, and you can then listen to every
silliest episodes. Without fail.
I don't know if that's ever been said on the Filmmakers Podcast before.
Filmmakers Podcast.
Yeah. By the way, the shout-outs, we're doing some shout-outs. Joseph Milson is doing his Kickstarter campaign right now for his feature film. It's his first feature film he's making for Signs of Life, his latest Kickstarter film now. This is brilliant. This is fantastic. Do get involved. I've already backed this project. This is a heart-stopping drama with a side order of romantic comedy. Link to that is in the show notes. Do go support Joseph and his ace.
Technicolor Dream Go?
No. His ace film, Signs of Life. Also, Boland Shoes is out on the 15th of this month, literally a week's time. They will be on the podcast, Terry Dwyer and director Ian Poulsen Davies, next week, all being well.
Which will be terrific, as I like to say.
It will be. Have you got any other Terry type puns?
Terry time, territories.
Which territories is it out? Well, it's out in cinemas the 15th of September. Link to that
territory
is in the show notes. Starring Tim Spall, Leanne Best.
And Dwyer not.
And Dwyer not. Well done. So, do you want to learn how to finish your feature film? The post-production demystified Zoom course that we did for producers and directors is now available online. It's only $33 as well, so it's an absolute steal because we go into details about what you should do in post-production, how you go about it. It's done from a director-producer point of view. It's also done from an editor point of view and a post-production supervisor point of view. All the paperwork, everything you need to collect and create, ready so that you can deliver it all alongside the finished film. We go into massive detail about that. If you're interested, right now it's $33 online, but that's only lasting for September. So just for September, it's $33. After that, the price will go up. So get on it now. Link to that is in the show notes. It's an absolute steal. How you can learn to finish your feature film.
There we go.
So let's get to it. This is the episode with Marc Jobst. Sit back, relax, learn, get a pen, paper, and enjoy.
Enjoy.
Hello.
Hey guys.
Hey Mark.
Hello.
I think it's fantastic what you guys do. I really support it.
Oh, that's great.
It's so important that we share our knowledge and experience and lack of knowledge and lack of experience, because it's certainly, I wish I'd had that when I started filmmaking, rather than just literally on the job, and every little extra job you do, you dare a little bit more. So I think it's fantastic what you guys do. I really support it.
Oh, great. Thank you. That's the reason we started this, because it was like, we never had it when we started. So we were like, this is useful, not just for us, but for everyone else.
And in the film business, it's really hard to find mentors, because actually everybody is kind of chasing the work. And there are very few people who are A, generous enough, B, confident in their career enough, and see at when they get to that stage in their career where they can share information, they're usually knackered.
It's so true. Reading other scripts for people or it is very hard. So people find it very difficult to do. So or just the time, or they're trying to find work themselves. So totally understand.
We don't often see other directors' work, it's not like it's easy to shadow another director, because so much goes on in a director's head and so much goes on off set. And so it's quite a difficult thing to do. And one of the interesting things about going into shows, as a director coming in, it's partly why when I started out working in America, I was really happy just to do episodic work, is because I just wanted to get in and you might be able to see the director for a few days who is working before you, and then as the new director comes in, you would sit around tables from time to time to pass over what you'd been doing in your episodes. And so it was a great way for me to kind of gauge and calibrate a little bit what was going on in America and how different it was to directing in the UK.
I suppose that's almost like a doctor that is passing over like the night shift to the day shift. Like you sort of, you're in it for your very intense period of time, and you've got to then translate what's been done before, and then apply your own sort of knowledge to it. So it's an interesting system that you have to try and play catch up and fit into. Did you find it difficult, sort of immersing yourself into that?
Not really. think by then, I'd had quite a lot of experience already. And it was really interesting for me because the journey to America was kind of unexpected. I hadn't particularly, beaten that path. And my agent had always said to me something really wise, which I share with everybody, never go to America with your hand up saying, look at me. I'm here, only ever go to America when they ask for you.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people go over going, hey, right, I'm here. Who wants me? And Americans, it's like, no, get them to call you over. Yeah, absolutely true. And how do you do that?
Yeah, well, really good question.
Who called you over?
Yeah, exactly. Well, who was it? Let's go do them.
It came at, well, look, I've had the same agent for a very long time, and we know each other very well. Josh Varney at 42, and he was, we were at the Independent together. We used to be ICM, and then Independent, and then he broke away to create his own agency, 42, and I think it just happened that I was, and so he's ambitious, and when he set up 42, he only kept those artists that he felt like he really wanted to work with, and I was lucky that I was one of them, and I think so. I think he does quite a lot of preparing the ground. But then I was shooting the Musketeers over in Prague, seeing a call from an agency in LA who just said, we'd like to represent you. And we had a chat on the phone, and I said, "Great, we should meet, shouldn't we?" And they said, "No, it's fine. We love your work, And I'm a guy who likes to be in a room with people, So I said, if it's all right with you, I'm going to come over and just, sit in a room together and chat and see whether, we can make some chemistry together.
Yeah, exactly.
So I did, and it was that bizarre journey where, on the coach. I was on a coach to Heathrow to get on this kind of bucket class flight.
£1 one, I hope. Megabus. Yeah.
Felt like I was crushed up against
it
like this, And
suitcases.
I got a text from a producer friend of mine called Steve Lightfoot, who I'd worked with on several films in the UK, and he was joint showrunner of a show called Hannibal over in America. And I just got a text out of the blue on the coach going down saying, would I be interested in shooting an episode of Hannibal? I didn't know it at all, so I just said yes. It was Steve.
You'd kill for that.
I didn't know that I'd kill for it. I just thought, Hannibal, really? That's pretty dark, isn't it? Do I want to do that? But it was Steve, and I love Steve, and I'm godfather to his children and all the rest of it. And so I said, yeah, of course, yeah. He said, but Brian Fuller, who was the showrunner of the show, said you might want to meet him. He might want to meet you before deciding it. So when you arrive in LA, we'll set that up. And then I arrived in LA, and the text came around saying, he's seen your work, he's happy. Can you fly straight out to Toronto? So that's sort of how it started, really. And so I flew out to Toronto. First class in a totally different kind of ball game.
From a megabus to first class, £1 to first.
And the weird thing is, it kind of frightened me even more. I know megabus and I know bucket class, but first class was like, oh my god, this is really quite serious, isn't it?
Yeah. You get looked after.
You've made it all of a sudden.
Suddenly it's like, oh god, the pressure's on.
They're going to find me out.
They're going to find me out. Isn't that always the case? And was the pressure on? Did you feel that way a little bit? Because jumping into an American TV show is very different from UK TV shows. And we have talked about it on the podcast before, but it'd be fascinating to hear that from your side and what your experience was like.
But I didn't really have an awful lot of time to think about it, because it really was literally, I said, look, I just need 2 days. I need to meet my agents, take a day's worth of meetings, and then I'll jump on the plane and come out. And
right.
Yeah, it was really intimidating. There's no question about it. It's a really very high art show for a network show, for an NBC show. Hannibal is incredibly beautiful. It's darkly beautiful. It's a very dark show, and I had to kind of binge 2 seasons of this, and in between episodes of Friends and in between auditions for the X Factor, which somehow watered it all down for me.
Made it easier, less blood.
and then you walk on set and you've got Mads Mikkelsen there, and you've got Lawrence Fishburne, and these are guys who are gods in my mind, and you're the director in charge. So yeah, it was definitely stressful. But you know what? And I found this in my career altogether. Really, is that you go back to the work. When and the work's the same. You ask the same questions. What's the story? What's the story we're telling here? Where are we trying to get to? What's the story of the episode, the film? What's the story of the scene? What is basic stuff that comes from my theatre days? When I had a theatre company, I was working in the theatre a lot. What's the story? What's the character? Who is the character? And what do they want? And when you're walking onto set, that's what an actor wants a director to be holding for them. And even if you don't necessarily know the answers yourself, you can provide the question, and then together you can find the answers. Well, I think normally what I say is, what do you want from this scene? Rather than, well, I think you want this, so that you can invite the actor to bring. And after all, they've inhabited these characters a lot longer than I have.
Yes.
And so you want them to come out with something first, and it might be very different from what you're thinking, and your thinking comes from knowing the whole episode, and sometimes actors only really know their storyline. So I might say, oh, so that's really interesting. I wonder how that works with this. And so then you start that discussion of, oh, okay, yeah. So maybe you're right. Maybe we need to just pitch it a little bit more like this, or whatever it is. And then you start that process of really going into character and what the truth of the moment within the scene that you're shooting is, to unlock some kind of authenticity.
And how do you then sort of juggle that with what the showrunners and the execs are kind of feeding into things like, because obviously that's a great collaboration, and you're kind of going on what the actors already know, and you're then interpreting in your own way. How do the showrunners fit into that, and maybe how is that different in America as it is in the UK?
It really varies from show to show, Dom. I mean, it's kind of like there are some showrunners who are, sit on you. And really want to check up on everything. I have to be honest, I've rarely found that. In the UK, you, as a director, you see a show through to lock. So, when you're given an episode to direct, it is changing. I haven't worked in the UK so for almost 10 years now, so I don't quite know how it at the moment. But certainly the last shows I did in the UK, I already began to feel. I mean, there were times when I, as a director, needed to talk to the writer, and I was feeling like the producers were wanting to chaperone me, because that American system of the producer being in charge was beginning to creep into here, and of course. It's a shame, really, and it's a shame in America too. And I have this conversation a lot with the DGA, the Directors Guild of America, about the role of the director in America, because actually, ultimately, it's an exciting collaboration. When a director can work with a producer and a writer, and not feel threatened by each other, but to realize that we're all trying to make something phenomenal together. That's a really exciting collaboration. But in America, the writer stroke showrunner is God. In reality,
yes.
In practice, they don't always unleash their goddom. And the best ones don't need to. But you've got to have the confidence to do what you feel is right. So on Hannibal, for example, Brian, I love Brian. Brian Fuller, who's the showrunner and the writer and the creator of Hannibal and Pushing Up Daisies and American Gods and all kinds of other extraordinary. Shooting a movie actually in Budapest at the moment with my my DOP on One Piece.
Great.
But he's very, very particular. On Hannibal, he was very, very specific and very, very particular. And that's wonderful because it's a really clear vision. And there were times when, for example, we had a sequence to shoot and he said, I want it to be like this. And he'd show me a Madonna video that David Fincher had shot for 28 million.
Yes. And you're like, sure,
no pressure.
I'll do that.
Oh, gosh. 3/4 of a day to shoot it in.
And 23 million,
sure
obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just 27 million.
And there were times when I would just think, I just don't know if I'm the right director for this. I think, he wants a pop video director and I'm a character man. And, there were times when I just thought, actually, eventually, I just thought, I've just got to do what I think is right because I can't do what I think somebody else thinks is right. That way lies madness. And then if as I phoned up my wife and I said, look, I might be on the plane home tomorrow because I've got to this point where I really just have to do what I think is right because I can't function trying to second guess. Nor would Brian or Steve want me to. But it was my first American show, and I really wanted to get it right for everybody. But I was getting to a point where I just felt like I wasn't being true to myself. So on the Monday when I went in and I started shooting, and I just thought I felt completely free then,
right? Because
I was willing to be fired.
That's really interesting.
I didn't want to be fired.
No, of course, but because you were prepared to go, I'm prepared to. Yeah, I'm prepared to walk away.
Well, I come to terms with it, and I come to terms with it, and it gave me real strength, to just say, okay, and actually, it's a difficult place to get to. I found this on One Piece as well, the pressure of One Piece and the fan base and the expectation and the massive budgets that we were working to and all the rest of it. And, I used to read a lot of sports psychology books. Because I was really interested in, this is when I was directing EastEnders, actually. I remember in particular watching Goran Ivanisevic.
Tennis player,
in the Wimbledon final. And how is it that in the gladiatorial pressure of the Wimbledon centre court, with all those thousands of people watching and all those billions of people watching on television screens, how could he dance like a butterfly and be free and fluid and creative? And how was that? And so, that's the same thing for a director. How can you, when you step onto a set, with all the pressures that come with it, and in this case, we had a crew of 800 people or whatever it was, huge numbers of people, and all the Netflix execs and the studio execs, and how can you be free and in the moment? Because fear contracts, and if you go in fearfully, you'll tiptoe around your shots and your expression, and that all then can be conveyed to everybody else. And you can't expand, but confidence grows and confidence expands people. And so how do we do that as directors, when we walk onto a set, knowing we've got a day ahead of us, knowing that we're chewing up a lot of money, that there's a lot of expectations, that you have the responsibility of these great actors that you're working with, that you want to honor and help. So I found sports psychology really helpful.
It's brilliant, because those moments about how you reframe things are so important when you are in those sort of high pressure moments. And it's finding that one seed that sort of gets you through. I mean, what was it that actually, what was the journey to actually getting onto One Piece? How did it even begin?
I guess it was started, on my first Netflix show, which was Daredevil, a long time ago now. In the days when Netflix was sort of dial up, and and they really had House of Cards and Daredevil, and I'd done Hannibal for Gaumont International. The producer on that then said, would I like to do their next show, which was Hemlock Grove, which was an Eli Roth thing.
Yep.
And that had gone really well, and they loved what I'd done with it. I made it kind of really sexy and raunchy and explicit. And then she left and joined Netflix and put me in front of Marvel. And so then I was presented with this episode, which was called New York's Finest, which was up on the rooftops of Manhattan. And it was introducing the Punisher really as a kind of character, and the first time he spoke. And it was a big duologue really between Daredevil, who was tied up to a chimney, chained to a chimney, and the Punisher. And there was a lot of anxiety from Netflix and Marvel really about this episode, because it was very talky, and as they said to me, it's very theatrical. And I think that's partly why they brought me in, because I'm used to working with actors. I love actors, and I think I'm through that I've learned how to draw out a performance from people. And you go back to the basics on that. What's this? So Charlie Cox and John Bernthal, it's big, long. We had 14, 15, 16 pages of dialogue to shoot between the two of them. And you do the work and you say, well, what are these scenes about, really? And you come to your true north of what that is. And, for us, boiling it down, it was for Charlie, it was, this is about his belief in redemption. Everybody has the right to redemption. And the Punisher saying, no, we need revenge. The baddies are bad uns, and why lock them up in the hope that they'll come out good? Why should that happen? It hasn't happened. And through his experience on the battlefield and coming home and finding his family murdered and all the rest of it, that's where he came from. So this becomes a battle between revenge and redemption, and becomes an argument, really. And what we wanted to do is constantly make the audience flip-flop. So when Charlie's talking, you think, yeah, absolutely, redemption. We all need the opportunity to redeem ourselves. And then John will start talking and say, no, actually, fuck that. No, yeah, kill him.
I suppose it's a shift of power, isn't it, within the scenes, and it's something that's sometimes missed is creating these power dynamics where you let one actor or one character sort of take the lead, and then the other one persuaded, and it's that back and forth that makes it so fascinating. If it's just even all the way through, then you've got something that's quite bland, I suppose.
Well, and Charlie and John, when we were rehearsing on the first night, we were working from 5 p.m. until 5 o'clock in the morning, in the kind of, the heat of those New York nights. And Charlie and John were at it. And we got to the end of that day's pages, which was maybe 6-7 pages or whatever it is, And I remember Charlie turning around to me and saying, can't we just do this whole thing tonight? And I said, well, yeah, but it's like 14, 15 pages, Yeah. And they said, and Charlie turned to John and said, John, do you know it? And John said, yeah, I know. Of course they know it. These guys, love them. They can't possibly learn 6 pages of a major argument. They've learned all of it because they're just so good, and they're such pros, and they understand that you can't calibrate a night's work.
No, in the makeup chair. No, you can't. Yeah. And
Charlie was saying, can we just do it? Because I don't know that I can hit the emotional power and beat at the end of the first night and come into it on the second night in the same level. Yeah. So I'm saying, well, that's tough. But if I simplify my shots so that we're not moving the camera too many times and doing too many lighting setups, and I talked to my DOP about it and my producer, and I said, I think we should go for this. What's the worst that can happen? We don't make it, and we break, and we come back, and we pick up where we went from. And so we did. We went for it.
And this was your first time shooting? Was this the first? That's amazing. You've just gone in and obviously you had the cast behind you, but to just go, guys, I'm going to redo how you do stuff here. I'm going to shoot this. I mean, but the fact was you know, I love that. I love the fact that you were like, no, this is a really good way to shoot it, right? Do you support me? Rather than, I imagine that's the way you did it, rather than demanding.
Totally,
this, is it? Yeah,
totally. Yeah, completely. But that's the teamwork. That's the beauty of what we do. That's the collaboration. And you look at them in the eyes and you say, do you think we can do this, guys? You know, and when they look back at you and say, we want to do this.
Yeah.
Then you just say, I'm in. I'm completely in for this, you know. And you simplify your shots down because you know that at the end of the day, the performance is everything. It's not really about angles and all that, you know. Cover it. Get out of the way.
Yeah, get out of the way.
Get out of the way. Let them do it, you know, and create the right circumstances for them to be able to kind of do their rise and fall. And as you say, you know, calibrate the pace changes and all the rest of it. And we did it. And we did it tonight, you know.
That's amazing. And then,
of course, what that enabled, because in that same episode, we had that big single shot fight down the stairwell. It's become infamous. You know?
Yeah.
And again, you know, that was me going to Marvel and Netflix to say, I want to shoot this in a single shot. And it was a fight between, I don't know, 20, 30 stuntmen that
all
Charlie
falling
was doing.
off and all sorts.
And they would say, why? And I'd say, well, the story is that the Daredevil has got the Punisher. They've had a fight. He's knocked him out. He's got him on his shoulder. He's walking down the corridor. He gets into the lift, and all the bikers that the Punisher has kind of, you know, disturbed the nest of are coming up the stairs, and they want to get him. This old man comes out of his flat, and the Daredevil, as a character beat, knows that the bikers will just brush him aside in order to get to the Punisher. And he, as a guy, can't do that because would be against his values.
Yes, of course.
So he knows if he leaves the Punisher exposed to the bikers will try and get him. So he's got to press the button to get the lift to go down. Story-wise, it's really important that Daredevil saves the old man and gets down those stairs as quick as he possibly can so that if the Punisher wakes up, he won't run away. So if I then start to break up fight sequence down into loads of different shots and concentrate on, you know, those fights, I lose track of the story.
You do. Time-wise, you don't know how long's gone by, what's happened. It's true.
You've lost track of it. You know?
And you lost the urgency.
And you've lost the urgency. And you've lost your connection to what was the main event, which is Daredevil and the Punisher.
Yes. And will he wake up?
Yeah, and will he wake up? So that was my pitch to Marvel and to Netflix. And they
dear
said,
Marvel,
well,
dear Netflix, phone in hand. I have a pitch for you.
And they said, well, it's hard to argue against your argument, Mark.
Which is
how
good.
the fuck are you going to do it?
That's the second question.
And I said, I don't know. I'm not sure yet. But if you're agreed to
let me try
kind of investigating this and starting from that point, we'll find a way.
Wow.
And so Phil Silvera, who is the stunt coordinator on that, brilliant stunt coordinator, we looked at could we find a drone that went up and down the staircase? We looked at kind of wire cams that went up and down, and then we looked at Ronins, and then eventually we settled on a little Ronin that we could use to drive through the corridor fight sequence, and then we could hand it off onto a wire and let go of it, let the wire drop down, and then there was another camera operator a little bit further down who could take it off the wire and continue the fight sequence as it went down. And
amazing. Isn't that magic? Those moments for you, right, as a director, must be magical, right? When you've rehearsed it and you're just praying it'll all work and the timing of it all, and then you just sit back and watch it and just go, well, look at that.
I got a rash. I've got a
Didn't
rash.
think you were going to say that, but yeah.
It was very nerve-wracking.
I can imagine. Oh my gosh.
We were on our first night. We were just literally rehearsing the corridor,
Yep.
the lift, the timing of the lift opening, the timing of him pressing the button, the bikers coming up, getting the Punisher down and coming out. We hadn't even done any fighting.
Right.
And we 6 hours into the rehearsal and we still hadn't shot anything. And it was because there was a bundle at one particular moment which we couldn't kind of suddenly unwrap. And Phil was sort of saying, well, if we unwrap this, we're going to ruin the rhythm of the choreography. So, and we reached an impasse, and then by which time Los Angeles had woken up. And they were looking at the logbook and saying, he hasn't shot anything. 6 hours into the day.
Alarm bells off.
Talking about
this director. First time with us.
How's he going to do it? You know?
Yeah.
Netflix and Marvel are like, dear Mark.
And I'm saying, dear wife.
Exactly. Get me on a flight. Dear
we're here again. This is our situation once more. I'm coming home. And my first assistant director, bless him, you know, he was fielding all this for me. I didn't know all this was going on.
Right. Okay.
And at one point, he very quietly sidled up to me and he said, "There's a little bit of interest from Los Angeles, wondering how you're going to be doing." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "It might be a good idea for us to just shoot something. Just shoot anything. Just get something on the log."
Yeah.
Please,
basically, please, Mark, please. Just shoot
we shot a really bad shot. You know, I don't know what it was. It was a door handle. I don't know what it was. You know, anyway, we shot something and got something on the log, and that kept them quiet. You know,
right.
Then Charlie, in the interim, Charlie, bless him and love him. He said, "Look, you know this little blockage that we've got. If I do this, that frees the camera to get around." And can we just rehearse that and see if we can accommodate that? And we did, and of course it did.
Amazing.
And it freed the whole thing up. And then, but you know, the reason why I say I got a rash is, you know, it was what happened is, and what happens when you do these big ambitious shots is the crew starts to pull away from you. And they start to say, just break it up into shots, Mark. Just break it up into shots.
Yeah, because it's tricky. It's difficult. Yeah.
We've got a whole firm.
Yeah. And then you see these little raised eyebrows that are going, and people going, you know,
first time here. Look at
still
him.
Not working. It's still not working. It's still not working. And I learned, you know, a lot from that, really. You know, I mean, there were times when I had to just take myself off and sit on my own and just, you know, gather the courage to go back out again and say, no, guys, we need to elevate here. This is what we're doing.
Good.
And it really does take, you know, goes back to that thing about saying, why am I here? I'm not here to do the easy route, because anybody can do that. I'm here to believe in what it is that we've spent time rehearsing, talking about, working on. And that's how I want to direct. So it's a really long way, Dom, instead of answering your question, that I think you gain some trust with the teams that you're working with when you know, Marvel, at the end of the day, Marvel will get what they want. That's how they operate, and there's no bad thing. I don't say that in any criticism whatsoever, but if you give them what they want, I'm not sure you'll work for them again.
Interesting.
What they really want is for you to surprise them
and push the envelope. And really,
deliver, because when it's one of those moments that like fans go crazy about, that's basically what they're desperate for, isn't it? It's like being memorable and creating. So I guess those hair-raising moments where you stick to your guns and you deliver really are those sort of forges in fire that keep you strong for the future projects. So I mean, going into One Piece, which is obviously
anime. I mean, did you have an experience in the anime world? I mean, what was the initial thought process on transitioning into that? Because it's quite a big sort of change in style and the fan base and iconography and everything, even from sort of the Marvel world.
Yeah, really. And I thought the Marvel world were loyal fans, and then you go into The Witcher, and of course in The Witcher they're even more particular.
Extremely.
But then not really knowing very much about One Piece,
right.
but having got the call from the studio to say would I be interested to talk about it, and then reading the scripts and really loving the scripts actually, which kind of led me to dive deeper into the manga. And then realizing, oh my God, the fan base for this is even more loyal than The Witcher.
Who would have thought? Yeah.
You suddenly think, wow, this is, I mean, it's phenomenal, but
yeah.
But there's something else about this IP that is making the fans so loyal to it. And that was, a wonderful journey to go on for me, because I loved Matt and Steve's scripts.
Mm-hmm.
I love the epic in them.
Yes.
I love the world building and the adventure of it all, and the big, huge action sequences to land. And I loved, but what really drew me to it is those lovely, quiet, intimate scenes between two characters where it all comes down into something really small and really little and really kind. And that's unusual in those big, world building shows, to get those moments. And so I loved all that about it. And then of course you have the kind of the real question about how do you make that transition from 2D into 3D?
Yes. Yeah.
And, I guess we did it with the Marvel work, with Daredevil and Luke Cage and the Punisher, and I guess we did it with The Witcher too, in a slightly different way, because it's a game, but it is a book too, isn't it? But for this, it's wacky, and 2 dimensions is really just pen and paper, and you can do whatever you want with a body on pen and paper. But when you put it into 3 dimensions, you've got to dimensionalize your characters. And this was the approach that I took. And I think it's one of the reasons why, I worked so well with Marvel. And I think, to answer your question about how I came into this, is because my approach in these shows has always been to start with character. Not with the fantasy of it, not with the world building of it, but is to start with the character of it. And to me, it's really easy as a director to get overly caught up in the world building of things. It's kind of technical, and it's very demanding, and it's exciting, and it's set building, and it's all that. But an audience doesn't fall in love with a set.
It's true.
They fall in love with people. And so, given that I was leading this show, I really wanted to turn that around and put the people at the front and center of this world, and invite the audience to care about them and to fall in love with their dilemmas and their wants, in a sense. So that felt to me like where, truthful to me, as a guy who comes from theatre and works with actors and performance, and where you only have a wide shot, and also truthful then to the one piece that I began to learn about, which is the reason, actors would come into the auditions and say, this has seen me through some really dark times.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, as a director, obviously you take that on board and you think, I really want to honor that. That's lovely, what is it? And then of course you realize that central to this is a character, Luffy, who is really quietly inspirational. He just wants you to believe in your dreams and to follow your dreams, and he'll help you. And he wants to find a family because he doesn't have a family.
Yeah.
And so he's fiercely loyal, and he asks us to be loyal to our friendships,
It's lovely.
So,
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. And the world building as well, the whole expanse of it all is massive, and pirates. And it's, how is it when obviously you exec produced as well, the whole first season, when you're looking at something like this and you're looking at the whole, trying to piece it together, and you're directing the first episode, the pilot episode as they call it, but by now, you're making all 8, because obviously you're setting that first stall. That's what the other directors are looking at as well, is like you've done on other shows, you look at what they've done, and obviously it can change over time, but technically you're setting that stall out. How do you go about that? Obviously you're working with the showrunners, you're working with the team, but at the same time you're still got, like you say, that you did on Daredevil, is you're putting your stance in it. Okay, well, I am going to shoot this like this. I am going to maybe do this as a one shot. I am going to come out the barrel. I am going to, whatever it is, fun stuff. What is this just you creating this and going, this is what I want to do? Talk us through the process of when a TV show like this is happening and you're doing the first episode and you're putting down and you're talking to your DP about the shots you want.
I mean, it's such a big question.
Sorry.
No, it's a really lovely question. It's such an important question because it is everything. And I feel like you have to grab the space, and it's up to you to do so as a director. And the stronger vision that you have for it, the more that space opens up to you.
Love that. Yeah.
So for me, I did a lot of mood boards and storyboards, and reference films that we would, that I would want to tonally explain. I did so many creative pitches to Netflix and to the Netflix execs because it's tonally a really complicated show to get right.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to be, camp and frivolous and silly and dressed up and all the rest of it, nor did I want it to be too dark and Marvel and The Witcher. It had to be somewhere a little more playful than that, and so we had to find that language, so I did a lot of mood boards, photographs, films, references, pictures, and I remember there was a moment when I was talking to the Netflix team and I said, look, this is a story about we're better off together than we are alone. And I put up The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
And they just said,
see that.
That's what it is. And then we kind of ran with that. And then because I had a really clear idea about how I wanted this show to look, and that was partly referenced and influenced by the manga framing. When you look at those frames, they're wonderful and they're very particular to One Piece. And so as a director coming in to try to honor that in order for the fans to feel at home in the world that we were creating in live action, you look at those frames and you think, well, how can I do that? How can I do it so that, I have a fist that comes into the foreground of the frame, but the body's still at the back there. What do I do to make that happen? Or the foot comes in and then you have a big eye, and you can do that and you can still see the world. And then in the same breath, not wanting to go back into that system of here's the wide shot and I'm showing the audience the world. Because that's me as a filmmaker showing the audience the world, and then going into the close-ups to do the dialogue and the reactions and the coverage. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be with them. I wanted to experience and explore and discover the worlds with them. So Nicole Whitaker, who's my cinematographer, who I'd worked with before, we'd worked with these lovely Mini Hawk lenses that I really love. They're kind of like an anamorphic lens, and they've got a beautiful, different bokeh to the spherical lenses.
Yeah, great lenses.
Beautiful lenses. And I said, is there a way that we could talk to some lens manufacturers to get some special lenses made for us?
Wow.
So I love, for example, the lenses on The Favourite.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
Jorgen Lanthimos film, but they had that kind of bend on them.
Too fish-eyed. They were really fish-eyed, weren't they? The bend.
Really fish-eyed. He used it brilliantly and it worked very well in the movie, but there's no way I could sell that to Netflix.
Sure. Yeah.
But I said, if we could take that bend out, then what I have is this huge width to my lens.
The wide expanse of it,
And if you can then give it to me as a close focus lens, then I can be with my characters and go into these worlds and see the world that they're seeing.
Perfect. Yes.
Amazing.
And I don't have to go back and shoot my wide shot.
Because you've got it in the close-ups or the
Genius.
They're all in the close-up, and it's one of the things that I learned from Alfonso Cuarón, when he was talking at one stage. I went to an event and we were talking about lenses, because he worked on the 21 and the 28 mostly. And he was shooting Harry Potter, and he was shooting on the 21 and the 28. That's the only two lenses he used.
Wow.
And the studio was sort of saying, do you not think we should get some more close-ups, please?
Of course they are.
He said, but you've got the close-ups. And he said, well, they're pretty wide. And he said, well, let's just cut some stuff together and I'll show you. And of course, what they were mistaking was actually the lens was close to them, but they had so much width to them.
Yeah.
You were seeing so much location that it didn't feel like the traditional close-up that you get.
Yes.
On a 40mm, 50mm lens or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've always really enjoyed shooting wide and just showing the world, like you said, and it's a common pushback of not getting those sort of traditional, like, longer telephoto style lenses.
Have you had pushback on that?
Yeah.
What's that?
Have you had pushback?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's always like, if you've got the extreme close up, when are we going to get onto the 70 or the 85 or the 100mm? It's a constant thing, I think.
Of course, because it's that tradition. I think people get scared, don't they? Have you not got the coverage? Have you, especially, produce, if they're not knowing fully what's in your mind, it can be frightening, I think, for people. But and it's explaining or showing, like, say, let me cut something together and I can show you, but it's again time to do that. But I love that you thought about that and you're really thinking about the world building, especially with this, because it is so colourful and playful and big and interesting and different. The fact that he can stretch like he can, and like you said, with the punch and the arm, and it's like you want to feel that, and you can't do that shooting traditionally. So I found that really interesting.
Yeah, and so we were working on 8mm lenses, 8mm lenses, and 14mm lenses, and so our preferred was the 14 and the 21. We rarely went longer than that. Certainly on my two episodes. I think the other directors tended to go a little bit longer, and when we were doing the flashback sequences, we went for a slightly longer lens than the width of the kind of the present day stuff.
So jumping into, you've adapted the sort of the visual style, which is fantastic from the anime. How do you then adapt the characters? Because obviously it is a different medium, being sort of live actiony, and how do you sort of keep that authenticity where the fans, you're keeping the heart of the characters, but also adapting it so it makes sense on screen? Is that a difficult thing to translate? Because it's hard to keep people happy.
Yeah, and you can't direct on that basis. I don't think.
Definitely not. No.
Because you don't know. They love the manga, but we're not doing the manga. And it provoked a lot of conversations for us, really early on, about saying, why are we doing a live action version of this?
Right.
There's a fantastic manga which is much loved and adored. There's a really successful anime show. So why do a live action? What is it that, unless we can feel genuinely we're adding something to it, then let's not do it. Or I don't want to do it. And so the question is, what is that? And I genuinely felt a combination of Matt and Steve's scripts, which were already very characterful, connected to a character, Luffy, who wants the world to believe in their dreams, who wants the world to believe in themselves, people to believe in themselves, to stand up for what's right, and all those great things. And that for me felt like a message that the world needs in stories now at the moment, instead of these relentlessly dark shows. Nothing against them, but we also need a balance of hope and optimism.
Yes.
And the hope that we would then dimensionalize these characters, give them true emotions. And Oda had written their backstories.
Right. Okay.
We knew a lot about why they are who they are, and all we had to do is kind of, as a director, help the actors constantly build their character from their backstory. And then, our hope was that by falling in love with these real people, they'd get more pleasure out of the anime and they'd bring it into the manga too. And so that would increase their love of these different forms, not diminish it. And that we would sit alongside it. So you'd have the manga, the anime, and the live action, and they would all inform each other into a greater love of this show.
Yes.
That's what I felt like I wanted to go into this production to
yeah, and you've definitely done that. And what was it in your time, like working with crews, from your very early beginnings doing EastEnders and all the wonderful TV that you did in the UK to then going to America? How have you overcome challenges or problems or situations that have happened on set or off set? And how's that made you better or worse, or something you wish you might have done differently, or something you handled very well?
Great question. I think I'm really clear that the space in which we work is for the actor.
Mm-hmm.
And that space is sacred. So my crews need to know that when an actor comes on set, you don't mess around.
Yep.
You don't talk, you don't whisper, you don't laugh, you don't shuffle about. It's a space. If you know what it's like to get onto a floor and stand in front of a camera and try to deliver an emotional truth, you would never mess about behind the sets, because it's very, very scary and revealing.
Yes.
And what I want as a director is my actors to reveal and to get over that. And so trust is incredibly important. And my job as a director my job with my first assistant director and all my ADs actually is to understand that this is for them. We are here for them. And all the technical things that we might be scratching our heads about, how to make it work, or the weather, or the green screens, or the lights, or whatever it is secondary to what it is that we're trying to achieve on the floor. Because in rehearsal, I spend a lot of time building trust. I spend a lot of time I say to the actors, I'm your parachute. Try anything you like, and I will make sure you get a soft landing. But you have to jump. And that relationship, thank you. I mean, that relationship is critical, because if they at any moment are anxious that I'm not their parachute, that trust is broken.
Yes.
And you'll never.
I love that. It's a great answer.
So it's so important to me that everybody understands that, because the bottom line is, we can do all the amazing sets and locations and visual effects and lights and special effects and knobs and whistles and bells and all the rest of it that we like. But if we don't have an authentic performance from an actor or a character in the center of your frame, nobody gives a flying fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really. Immediately switch off.
It's so true. It's so true. It doesn't matter how
it's
beautiful
all about
a shot
the
is.
actor, and everything else matters hugely to me, of course. But that's all about your pre-production. That's all about bringing in the right heads of department who understand what the vision is, who can run with your ideas, who are responsible and creative and brilliant in their own right. That you can trust to get on with it, which you constantly come back together to kind of calibrate. But in the moment when you're filming an actor, it's about them.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Looking back now, and certainly moving into the bigger budget TV, if you like, would you have given yourself any advice? Now knowing the successful director that you are, would you look back at that time when you moved over to America, and I don't know, or maybe even before that, where you'd look back and go, that would have been interesting. I wish I'd known that, or I wish I'd thought differently. Is there any advice there that would help our listeners?
I think one of the things that I say a lot. I never went to film school, regretfully, really.
I think you've done all right.
I think you've done fine. I think you don't need to regret
that one.
You're all right.
Thank you. But
you could still go. I mean, there is that option. I mean, just to teach, I imagine.
I guess the reason I say that is because, feel like I've had to really learn on the job, and each step along the way. And the danger is when you're earning a living out of it, the danger is that you become overly cautious because you want the next job. And so what I say to film students, or those people who say to me, is it worth going to film school? I say, make as many mistakes as you can at film school. It's the place to don't try and be Steven Spielberg or David Fincher or whatever. Just try, and I'm not saying go out to make mistakes, but push yourself, dare to try stuff out, because it's the only time in your life where you can really do that, and freely learn from it
and fail big.
And fail big. What I have here sitting in front of me is the Samuel Beckett quote. No matter, try again, fail better.
Yes. Yeah. Fail better.
Fantastic.
Look at it right in front of us now. Great.
And I think when you're earning a living doing the job, it's really hard to do that, but you must. And at each time you have to kind of make peace with the fact that you might get fired. But equally, I know that I don't want to live a life which has been timid or cautious. David Fincher said it. Look, you'll get blamed for all the mistakes if something doesn't work anyway. So you may as well get your mistake.
And it sort of all ties up to what you said earlier about being willing to die. I mean, it sounds dramatic, but you have to be able to let go and go all in, really, if you care about it enough. Otherwise, why bother?
That's the critical thing, Dom. If you care about it enough, people misunderstand that sometimes and think you're a bit carefree and you don't give a monkeys. That's not the case. It's because you care that you reach a point where I'm willing to be fired for this because I really believe in what is and particularly if that conversation in your head starts with a belief in character and story. In other words, what I want to do here, I really believe is the right thing for character, to bring out the juices, to bring out the colors of the character and the story. If you're doing it to be cool, I always say, at any one time, I'm happy for anybody to pause the film to say, why did you do that shot? And for me to have a story or character answer to that, not because it's cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Substance over style.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't talked at all about, independent films, movies and stuff like that, which we should do, but two of which I'm on at the moment, particularly with the strike going on, because there's television which is funded, and with that comes certain pressures, obviously, because they're the guys who've got the purse strings and they're employing you because they've got the money. And so there's that interesting, we touched on it with Marvel and Netflix and the money side of things, and how much are you beholden to them? Yes. But with an independent film, there's another whole set of different parameters which you're working with. Really interesting,
I suppose the character lessons that you've, because I mean, sometimes we do get this from audience. They're saying, well, okay, this is a Hollywood thing. How do we relate this to indie? But I don't think anything you've said about character doesn't apply to indie film.
Exactly.
That's where I would say.
No, and my big thing is always to say, what's the story? There are thousands of questions you get asked as a director on set. This guy. And what color t-shirt should we have? Should she have a handbag here or not? And all that sort of stuff. And you always say, what's the story? What's the story? Where's she going?
Yeah.
Where's she come from? What does she need? And what's the story will unlock most of the questions that you need to answer in terms of set building, in terms of lighting, everything, And then the second question, which is equally important, is where are you heading? What's your true north? What's this about? What is this really about? I know what the story is, but what's it about? Because once you can define that, then you can, as a director, you can hold the tiller. And when the winds blow to knock that boat off course.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to go in different directions. And by the way, over there, suddenly you become interested in that, and you've lost all touch with where you're trying to get to if you don't know what your true north is. But you can go over there and be excited by that, interested, and then bring the tiller back in the boat and say, but that's where we're going, and so we need to come back from there onto this. Really important question.
Yeah, so important and so powerful, because Tommy, you can get lost, and you, like you say, you're just doing episodes of something. You're like, okay, save, shot, done this before, no problem. But yeah, and again, if you're happy doing that, sure. But none of us three here are, and we're like, no. Even then, let's change the shot. Let's do this. Let's move you around. Let's go. Creating and being exciting and telling the story.
And it's quite easy to do general drama.
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
It's really difficult and really exciting when you're specific.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a joy, isn't it, when it comes off?
You're doing, why you're doing, what this scene is about, what this character wants from the other character, what this character's trying to get to. When you really interrogate that and understand it, and you and your actors work together, and it really helps you find that note to deliver to an actor. The note that is a verb and not an adjective.
Yes, exactly.
The action, to act is a verb, and you've got to find verbs that are playable notes to an actor.
Yeah, doing words that they can actually relate to, rather than something that is just useless to them, and you're just saying something they know.
Oh, could you just be a little more sexy?
Yeah, what does that mean? How can anyone do that?
What if they thought they were being sexy?
Yeah, exactly. That's even better.
Actually undermined them.
Yes. Yeah. Whereas if you could say, could you play where you're more in love with that person? Then
seduce the person.
Seduce them.
Flirt with them. Whatever it is.
Make it active. Yeah.
Give them something that they can actually play. Those basic things, and that's what makes drama specific, and that's when it becomes electric. Both as a director on set, when you see a performance unlock because you've given the right note.
Yes.
And when you see it on the screen, you know that the actor knows what they're doing, why they're there, and why they're why they're in that scene. And that's when drama becomes really exciting, really electric, and addictive.
I love it. Listen, One Piece is out now. Go watch it. It's on Netflix. It's fun. It's brilliant. You're going to love it.
Yeah.
Listen, Mark, thank you so much. This has been an education. This has been a wonderful episode.
Oh, it's great to talk to you guys. It's so lovely what you do. I can't tell you. It's just so important that we have these kinds of podcasts that people can kind of tie into and to share. I'm more than happy to share whenever. Whatever.
It relies on people like you coming and chatting as well.
Exactly. Yeah, so talking so openly and honestly, and then and our audience will love this. And you can go out there and make your film and your TV shows, and you can be creative, just as Mark has done. Exactly.
You've got to work. You don't get better as a carpenter by thinking about making great chairs. You get better by making loads of different chairs.
Absolutely.
And whatever you can, get your blooming phone, get out there and make stuff and learn about how. It's the only way of getting better.
Absolutely. And if you're lucky enough to rise up and do well,
sure, duty to send the elevator back down.
We will see you next Tuesday, as always. Marc Jobst, thank you so much. This has been incredible.
Great pleasure.
Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, brilliant chat.
A lot of fun.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Hope you enjoy the show.
See you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Bye.